You can do the very first part with the speech that's like.
What up, everyone? This is the Twice Over Film Club, and I'm your host, Faraz. So our new schedule goes like this. On Tuesdays, we announce what we're watching for the week. You can find out by going to thetwiceover.com or following us at The Twice Over on Twitter, Instagram, or Facebook. Then on Thursdays, a short, spoiler-free preview will be released for anyone that might need convincing to watch the film. Then on Mondays will be the full episode of our overall thoughts and discussion. Today we got our full episode on City Lights with myself, Fahad, and Farhan. Make sure to check out thetwiceover.com to see how we rated it and to see what your tally ends up being. This is a movie starring Charlie Chaplin from 1931. He plays a homeless person who stumbles into a friendship with a drunk millionaire while also falling in love with a blind flower saleswoman. Farhan and Fahad.
Hey guys, what's up?
What's going on?
Farhan, you chose this movie for Fahad to watch, and Fahad took his time to watch it.
I did. I kept pushing it off because it is a movie from the silent era. It's a little tough to watch, but I did end up enjoying it.
Well, that's good, man. Glad to hear it. Was it as tough to watch as you thought it was going to be?
No, not at all. So it's pretty engaging. There's always like a bit of visual comedy or some visual gag going on.
It's not too long either. That always makes it
and
easy.
it's not too long.
Yeah,
right.
runtime's what, an hour 20 something?
Yeah, it's under 90 minutes, yeah. Okay, let's just go right into our scores then and see where we're at.
So hold on, I think before we score, we need a clarification here. Dialogue-wise, this is a silent film.
All we have is title cards. There is a lot of dialogue that you fill in, like obviously it's not real, right? You're filling it in, watching it. The title cards are just like leading you into it, right? That's the point of it. But it's something you can't give a high score. I mean, I gave it a 40 for writing.
Here's why this category is a little tough for this movie, because dialogue is... I mean, they do say things and they do act out dialogue.
No, but I said it's anything that would be scripted, whether dialogue, narration, lyrics, the title cards fall into that. Mm-hmm. Title cards are technically narration.
They are. Anyways, that's how I treated it. So I gave it a 20 because, there's not a lot of it.
Well,
so.
That's fine. I gave it a 40. What did you give it, Fahad?
I gave it a 50 because I didn't know how to judge it. I thought they did as well as they could have with the medium. You know, it's a silent movie. So
It's a silent movie. If you're watching this for dialogue, then you need to question your life and
for
what
the writing
decisions you've made.
Dialogue is just part of the writing.
Yeah.
But yeah, there's obviously not much writing because it's a silent movie.
Yeah.
So we're kind of, I mean, me and Fahad are very close, and Farhan was just being as objective as possible, considering that there's like no writing.
Yeah. I think 20 is even like high, but anyways,
I guess we can judge the final notice that the lady receives, like, "Dear Madame, you're owing $22 in rent unless paid by tomorrow morning. We
that was
shall
poetry.
take possession."
That's telling the story, man. It's
that was poetry, right?
Poetry. No, but it's so like that kind of thing plays such a huge role in a silent movie that like would be totally unnoticed in a talkie.
Well, so here's the one piece of what I would call dialogue. The very opening scene when they're
unveiling the
whatever
statue.
they are. They're unveiling that statue, that sculpture, and they're like, and they're like talking like that. That's technically dialogue.
It is technically, and it's funny.
But what does that gibberish tell you? Like that the speech is unimportant?
Right. He's just mocking.
He's
Charlie
mocking
Chaplin does this a lot.
Like that elite class.
He mocks people specifically in like speeches and just things, proper etiquette in general. That's his whole thing. He just mocks the whole system. So, anyways, to the score, I don't think it really changes much. I'm at a 20.
That's fine.
We got a 40 and a 50. Don't watch this for the writing.
I mean, if you're gonna watch a silent movie for the writing, you don't understand what a silent movie is, I guess.
You don't understand anything.
All right, guys. Narrative.
The narrative. I went with the 75.
I went with the 65.
Oh, the 80. Engaging, not really. It's nothing too crazy. It's nothing to really write home about.
So here's how I analyzed it. I thought most of the screen time was spent on the visual gags,
right?
Which is fine because in this silent movie time period, I think that's like the best thing you can do with your time. Screen time. They can't really advance the story much because it's just too much of a simple story, and you can't like get into real details, right?
Right.
Unless you're relying too much on visual cards.
Yeah,
just like
those title cards.
Narration, those title cards. Yeah. So I didn't have a problem with that. And I like the visual gags in general, but the plot I found to be a little unoriginal because it's just like a romance story. It's cliched. And then the other plot line I found in this movie was like the friendship between the rich and the poor man, which I don't know if you can call it a friendship, right?
Yeah, it's a little tricky calling it
Well,
that.
I think this will go back into what Farn was just saying about how Charlie Chaplin likes to, I guess, poke fun or ridicule that elite class or elitism in general, where this guy, when he's a drunkard, he's lost his inhibition, so he's kind of down to earth and doesn't care who's rich or poor, and just is willing to be friendly with people. But the second that he's sober, he's like, oh, I can't be associated with this, or like, who is this person?
Right.
I mean, that's how I took it. I mean, the narrative, yeah, I agree with everything you said, Fahad. I did like the story, even if it is cliched, so I gave it a 75 for that reason.
So I think it's hard to call a movie from 1931 unoriginal because I feel like this is like the original.
But as far as it doesn't have to be compared to movies,
Yeah,
though.
that's
It
true.
can be compared to like literature, other forms of literature, right?
Right. And to what we've seen thus far. So in terms of that, yeah, definitely. But the reason that I gave it an 80, I think, and I do think that is probably the upper end. I mean, I don't know. Maybe if I watch it again, maybe I'll give it something lower. I don't know. But the reason I give it an 80 is because the parts that are engaging, or the parts of the narrative, I'll say, that are engaging or are charming, are like especially charming. And the fact that they can do that in a silent movie and convey the kind of emotion that he does sometimes, that really, really stuck with me. You know, there's a couple of scenes that I'll be honest, when I recommended this movie, I didn't remember the full movie. I remembered a couple of scenes that I thought were really artful. They were poetic narratively. And so that was the whole reason that I really chose this movie.
Gotcha.
So I think those scenes were done so well, and they were so charming, and they appealed to emotions so much that, but because you're right, otherwise it's physical comedy, and that's the whole movie. Yeah. It's just slapstick.
I thought the direction was done well. Like everything was executed well. The framing of the camera, they're working with the static camera most of the time. It was all blocked perfectly, right? The action's kept on the screen, and the few times that the camera moves around to try to capture the action, that's done fine when the camera actually does pan. Chaplin did the direction. Yeah. Chaplin acted. Chaplin did the score. It's amazing.
I mean, he's a one-man show back in the day, man.
Was he a seasoned veteran at this point?
I don't know about seasoned. I think he had a handful before that.
I mean, this was definitely one of his more famous movies in terms of the timeline. I don't think so. I mean, I think this is probably middle.
Oh, yeah, middle of the pack. I'm looking at his. He started in 1914, man, and he did 20 in 1914. I mean, there are a lot of shorts.
Wow.
And this was 1931. Yeah. So he had a few already.
Yeah. I mean, look, this is Key and Peele before Key and Peele. You know what I mean? This kind of thing, people weren't really doing this back in the day. The skit part of his movies is that you don't have to watch the whole movie. You can watch these. The boxing skit in this movie, I didn't even know it was in here, but I've seen it 1,000 times. The part where he's he's like, he's with that naked statue and he's stepping back onto the elevator thing. I've seen that 1,000 times. I had no idea that was in this movie. So a movie like this is, in terms of the direction, I mean, it goes from gag to gag to gag to gag. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
To appreciate Charlie Chaplin, I mean, you don't even. I think to appreciate him fully, you gotta watch the movies. But just to appreciate the guy, you don't have to watch the whole movie. You can pull up YouTube and just type in anything.
Just like consume some clips, yeah.
Right. Just like any skit show. Mm-hmm. You don't have to watch the full thing.
All right. So acting. So I gave it a score of 80. For acting, the acting needs to be on point to convey the story without the dialogue, and I thought Charlie's acting did it well. He acts shocked in scenes, he appears sad, he's happy in scenes. He has like all these extreme facial expressions that, I don't know, convey the scene well. And the actors, all the supporting actors are great in it too.
I'm up with an 85.
Okay.
I'm kind of between an 85 and a 90, depending on how much credence you want to give to side actors, because there aren't a ton. I think the main characters that were in the movie were awesome, and for 1931, the acting is more real than so many movies that we see nowadays. Real meaning it's conveying what it's meant to convey. we just reviewed a movie where that was not the case, and that's
He's talking about Three Idiots.
What year was that for us? 2000 and something.
2010, I think, or 2008.
And they can learn from a movie that is 80 years prior. And so I think, you know, for the time, so I'm kind of between an 85 and a 90, somewhere in that range. I'm going big, dude. 90.
Wow.
All right, I give it a 95 myself, actually, for everything Farhan mentioned, and 99% of the screen is Charlie Chaplin, his drunk friend, and the blind flower girl. I thought also did a pretty great job. Yeah, no, I thought like everyone was great, and dude, that last scene by itself wanted me to give it to 100.
Oh yeah, I know.
The last scene is so weird.
No, that's perfect acting, though.
Yeah, it was literally just perfect acting from everybody. I don't know about the kids, but like you know, Chaplin and what's her name? We got to stop just saying the blind girl.
When I say weird, I just mean his expression, his final expression.
But it's, well, that's how he smiles. Like, I know it's like the weird eyebrows, right? Because they're like drawn on and like accentuated.
Virginia Cheryl is her name.
Yeah, Virginia Cheryl was great. I gave it a 95. So, Farhan, you going with the 90 totally makes sense. And 80 is fair too, Fahad.
That smile that you mentioned, though, that's a very, very, very Chaplin thing.
Oh, is that?
Okay.
Like that expression is very, very him.
So I didn't notice that smile until like that scene. Like he has different smiles. That smile just like put me off.
Yeah. Do you remember when he was sitting with the boxer and he kept
the
like
nervousness?
I don't know. Like, we'll talk about this in discussion, but
yeah, let's go into the aesthetics. Aesthetics, I gave it a 50.
I'm getting it a 30 if we're going to say that none of that is. If we're just going off of how everything looks in terms of the picture.
Uh-huh.
It's an old movie, and it's an obvious old movie.
Exactly.
And it takes you out of the time period. Like,
yeah.
You're not going to sit there and watch and be like, wow, this is timeless.
Right.
Definitely not.
Yeah.
I wanted to give it a average score, so I went with 70, but now listening to your opinions, I guess I can give it something lower.
So, like, how do I have this? I have it, how immersive it is, right? So if it's pleasant to see and hear.
Yeah.
Purposeful. Mostly everything is purposeful in the movie for sure. Distracting, I would say probably not because it's so simple. Consistent, sure. It's just a pleasant to see and hear. It's just so old and like basic that for sure it's below average in my opinion.
So I am going to stick with my score of 70. For me, the highlight scenes, for aesthetically speaking, it's the way they were able to capture the night scenes at the harbor. You know, the first couple of scenes, and they did. Yeah, they captured like the night look so well, and I think that was a big point in my score.
They actually did a pretty good job with like the times of day, indoor and outdoor. Actually, they did a pretty solid job with that.
Yeah,
interesting. I didn't even pick up on that, man. You know what? Aesthetics. I'm going 35. No, I'm just kidding. No, taking that into account, honestly, that's a pretty big thing for a black and white movie to be able to do that. That is really that's really impressive, and I didn't think about that. So I'm moving it to a 50.
All right.
Oh, okay. Me and you were at 50. Fahad at 70. All right, let's close it out with themes. I gave this a 70 in average score.
Same.
Themes, I gave it 65.
I assume we're probably going to be very similar here, where I'm not even sure. Okay, the themes I've noted were like the innocence, wealth, inequality, sympathy, things like that. I will note that this is during the beginnings of the Great Depression, and this is also, it coincides with when like the movie business like took off in the United States, right? Because going to movies was like the last or cheapest thing you could do for entertainment.
Yeah, it was escapism, right? Whenever times are tough, escapism thrives.
So like having a theme like wealth and inequality, like the innocence, like that really plays very well into like if you were in that crowd back then.
Watching it in the 20s?
It was really what they needed, you know, at that time.
Or watching it in the 30s. This was released 31. Okay. Gotcha.
Yeah.
A lot of it is just
at face value, right?
Yeah.
Yeah, absolutely. I mean, it's not going to be a deep analysis, you know, the themes, but a lot of this movie, as is most of Charlie Chaplin's stuff, it's satire. And it's specifically classist satire, you know what I mean? So it's mocking the economic system, the economic classes, and the people who are meant to be above everybody and how they're not, you know?
Right. Going along with what you just said, or a couple scenes that exemplify that. Yeah, it was just those newspaper boys laughing at Chaplin that really sold the whole theme on that, how the poor get laughed at and like excluded.
Well, and there's such little things throughout because that's totally one of them, you know.
Yeah.
And then like what I'm thinking of is when they go to that party, and the floor is so shiny
that
he's never stepped on anything like that before, and he's slippering
okay.
all over the place because he has no idea how to stand in that area.
I didn't even pick up
In
on
that thing.
that was the reason
I did
for
not
that.
pick up on
Yeah,
that.
that was the
either,
reason
yeah.
why. And then they hand him the menu, and he doesn't know what a menu is, so he stands up like he's in church, like they're about to sing. That was so it's like little things like that he just pokes. He just pokes and he pokes at the system.
So he just is like a homeless person, right? Like I didn't really get like he's okay because they have him like credited as the tramp.
Yeah.
Okay.
I mean, that's just his character. He's that same character in a lot of his movies. That's like what people refer to when they say the tramp is Charlie Chaplin. That's just that character. That like happy-go-lucky, like he has that particular walk. That character doesn't change. So if you're talking about like range, this guy doesn't really have it. He's literally the same exact character. Yeah, the main scenes that made me want to recommend this movie are the first time that Charlie Chaplin sees the blind girl, Virginia Cheryl. I just thought it was really poetic. It shows how genuine of a character Charlie Chaplin's, his character is, the tramp, as well as her. And it was just a really genuine moment when he comes upon her. He's asking if he wants to buy a flower. And he's like, well, I guess, sure. And he doesn't even realize she's blind until she accidentally knocks the flower out of his hand, and he goes to pick it up. And then after he comes up with it, then she goes down and goes to pick up the flower that he just picked up. And he's like, what is she doing? She's like, did you pick it up? And he's like, yeah, it's right here. And then the moment when he realizes that, oh, she's blind and she can't see, his whole character kind of just really changes. Yeah, I thought that was really awesome. And then when she hears the car door and she thinks that it's him and that he left without his change, and he decides to not say anything, and he just slowly sidesteps and just watches her from afar. I just thought that was really poetic. Like that made me want to actually write. I wanted to write that scene, and I was like, why have I never written this? I was just kind of jealous that I hadn't written that. But yeah, I think that's kind of the main thing. And then obviously the very last scene, it just brings it full circle. Do we want to talk about that as well?
Yeah, let's do it. So in that final scene, she has her vision at this point, and Charlie's dressed in hobo clothes, like torn clothes.
Well, Charlie went to jail because... Well, Charlie the tramp went to jail because
he stole money for her.
He stole the money for her to have
to have her operation. Yeah.
Yeah, to get her vision back. So he's like just out of jail, and he's wearing the same exact clothes, just more tattered up.
Yeah.
And he's kind of embarrassed to be seen in it when he realizes who's at that flower shop and whose flower shop it is.
Right.
Is there a scene where she kind of laughs at him?
It's that scene.
Okay, no, I'm just asking. Does she laugh at him or his situation before?
No, I don't think at his situation, but at the fact that the kids are
just like
horsing around with him. So she's like laughing at that in general.
Gotcha.
But yeah, like I really like how it does come full circle, because obviously we the audience know everything that just happened, and like we're like really wanting them to like get together right now, but she has never seen him before, so she has no idea who this person is. And then eventually when she like touches his hand, and she like it comes back to her like, oh wait, this is like, it's you, and he's got that smile that creeps you out, Fahad. But I thought that was like a beautiful scene. I thought it was so wonderful, and a great ending.
Absolutely, they set it up really well too.
Yeah,
and,
they did.
I mean, it's so simple, but they set it up with one scene. She's at her flower shop. She can obviously see now, and she's taking orders from people. She hears that car door, and she immediately like looks to see who it is. It's some rich guy, and she's like, "Is it him?"
Not just like it's some rich guy. It's like some very handsome rich guy. Total opposite like Charlie Chaplin, right?
Yeah.
Like a tall dude, slim, and like very well dressed. Yeah, they set it up pretty well.
And you got to be thinking that she's doing this every single time she hears that car door, or at least, some of the times when she's caught off track and she hears the car door and she's like, wait a second, is that him? And so and then she says like, I thought that he had come. And then that's the follow up, or that's the lead in to that final scene. Yeah, I just thought it was a beautiful way to end the story, and it was a beautiful way to start the story as well. So I guess those are tearing up scenes that we could talk about. Huh?
Are you tearing up? Because I hear some sniffles.
No. This my wife is cooking onions or something. No.
Who's cutting onions right by you, right?
Yeah. Other than that, those two scenes, I guess I wrote down the boxing scene was pretty. It's kind of iconic. It is a scene that I had seen before I had even watched this movie the first time. And that's like where like the aesthetics kind of falls into like choreography with me or choreography falls into aesthetics for me because it's such a big part of what we're seeing and how we're enjoying it, I guess.
Right.
So I think for us, you put off a conversation you wanted to have, I think, right? About the boxing scene, at least when he's in that room with the other boxers.
Because you guys are talking about his like facial expressions. I think
Yeah.
that out. Because he has the like he's obviously going to just do this boxing match with the intention to split the purse with another guy who is he's gonna take the fall, and they're just gonna split the purse together, and he'll have the money he needs to cover the blind. Her name in this movie is his blind girl.
It is a blind girl.
But Virginia Cheryl's character, her rent.
Mm-hmm.
So, but the guy that he made the deal with is being chased by the cops. The cops are coming, so that dude books it. And it's just him left in the locker room, and like it's just one fight after another, and he's just looking for a way to like I guess bring it up to the guy he has to fight now. Like, hey, like can we split the purse here? So I don't know, that entire sequence is great. Like again, this all falls into acting for me too because his acting there is so good.
It is.
It's so good when he's trying to. The one black boxer where he's doing like the I guess superstitious stuff with the rabbit's foot and all that, and then when he finds out who the new fighter is that he needs to fight, and him trying to like get his attention and like slip in the wager that let's fix the fight. Like that whole sequence is great.
So this is a movie from 1931. Do you think they were taking some jabs at homosexuality at the time?
I thought that was going on. So
Mm-hmm.
the MPAA, right, the regulatory whatever commission for behind movies, they didn't take a stance. They weren't influential on like what content could be in movies until I think a little after when this movie came out. So what I saw in that boxing room, that locker room, is that he's like sheepishly looking at the other boxer. Were those like signs of like him being interested in the other boxer? Was it a little bit of comedy from that? Was that the intention behind it?
I think it's a couple of things. Chime in with whatever you think. I think it's a couple of things.
Mm-hmm.
One, that character is just this ultra polite dude when he doesn't really he doesn't need to be. Like when he does his hat tip, he does that 1,000 times throughout the movie.
Yeah.
You know, like all the time. And so that's just kind of his character. He's just this happy-go-lucky, like I said, ultra polite, charismatic character. So some people take that the wrong way. And they take it to mean that he's coming on to them, like that other boxer. So I kind of took it like that, but then I sort of took that as a jab at homosexuality because of how the dude did react to it.
Because he started changing in his
He started
behind the
changing
curtain.
yeah, exactly.
Right?
Yeah.
Right. And he's like, why is this guy looking at me? And then he's like, you know, you need to stop looking at me. And he changed the secret. And he didn't really change. He just took his pants off in secret. And it's not like he put anything else back on. It's just what he was wearing underneath. That was what he boxed in. And so there's that as well. But then also I think it's also what Faraz was talking about. Maybe he was just sheepishly trying to find a way to bring it up to the
bring
guy.
up the conversation, right? That he wants to
Yeah.
avoid getting like beaten up in the ring. The reason I brought up the MPAA was that I guess not just the MPAA. I think there's another body that kind of controls what content goes in. I don't think homosexuality would be allowed to be depicted in movies like in movies that came out in the 30s and 40s. I think movies got away from that.
I also want to say the eccentric billionaire or millionaire, right? That's the character's name.
Okay.
When he is drunk, I got some homosexual vibes then too. It's like that combined with what happened in the locker room. That's why I was like, is this like trying to say something about
You're
it?
right. There were scenes when Charlie Chaplin, I don't know if he went to give him a hug or he went to give him a kiss or something, and he's like, no, you don't do that. He literally just waved his finger like, no.
Yeah, and at that scene where when he saves him from killing himself, like at the harbor,
Right.
and like they're about to leave together, and like the police come.
Yes.
And like his reaction to it is almost like, why are these two men together
Right.
at this time?
Right.
Like there was a lot of little hints that I was getting, and I was like, is it or is it not? Like I don't know. It's 1931. It's a totally different time period. It could be totally innocent. It could be making a statement of some sort. For all I know, I have no idea.
So there is that scene where he looks at his wife's picture or something. What is that about? He either turns it away or turns it down.
He throws it away because she cheated on him, or she's moved out. Basically, she moved out. She didn't cheat on him. She moved out.
Yeah, she left him.
Oh, she moved out. Okay, I might have missed that part where they mentioned
Yeah, that's
that.
why he's so sad. That's why he's so he's kind of
Suicidal.
suicidal is because his wife left him.
Gotcha.
The fact that his name or his character is called the eccentric millionaire, and he kisses Charlie Chaplin a few times, I think, and is a little handsy. So I don't know.
Yeah, so I don't. It's kind of iffy, right? But it's interesting how we all had the same thoughts on the same thing, and I think that's just kind of. I mean, I think that sort of speaks to the way that we view things nowadays versus back then. I don't think that. First of all, I don't even think that they saw it as a. They didn't give any credence to. I use that word a lot. I don't know. I can't think of any other word. They gave no credence to homosexuality. So to mock it in a movie was like perfectly normal.
Well, is it mocking?
I don't know if it's
it,
mocking it. Like, yeah, it's just acknowledging it.
I don't know if it's mocking.
I personally got the vibe that he is poking jabs at it because of the police officer, because of the way that the dude reacted to when Charlie Chaplin went to hug him or kiss him or something, whatever they did, and the way that that guy reacted, the boxer, just little things like that. I think they're all sort of like jabs, and I honestly, I don't think anybody found that controversial.
Yeah, I don't think so
either. I
don't
think it is.
Even though that scene from like when they're sleeping in bed together, the eccentric millionaire and Chaplin's character, I didn't think anything of that just because it's a different time, and I knew it was common in Lincoln's time, men sleeping in bed together, so I figured I chalked it up to that it's just different time, different practices, different sets of taboo, and that wasn't one of them.
That's what I concluded too. Again, I don't want to look too much into it, but it is interesting that we all kind of had those thoughts.
Mm-hmm.
But like Farhan said, it could just be because of the lens we're viewing it through in 2020.
Right. I wanted to get into the acting a little bit. So because this is a silent movie, more exaggerated expressions are needed to convey like the story, right? And so what do you make of like the exaggerated hand gestures and expressions and everything else? It's like over the top, but it's needed. So how do you judge the acting in a fair way?
I don't think you can say it's over the top if it delivers, right? And in this movie, it delivers. So it would be only over the top if it delivered and then there was like random like movements or it was exaggerated beyond what was necessary to deliver the acting. That's not the case here. So for me, it wasn't over the top. It was just
appropriate. Okay.
Yeah, it was appropriate. It was executed well.
Yeah, and I agree 100% with what you just said. I am reading this weird piece of trivia. At one point, Virginia Sherrill came back to set late from an appointment, keeping Charles Chaplin waiting. Chaplin, whose relationship with Sherrill was not friendly, fired her on the spot. He intended to reshoot the film with Georgia Hill, his heroine from the Gold Rush, playing the flower girl. He even reshot the final scene between the tramp and the flower girl with Hill in the role. However, Chaplin had already spent far too much time and money on the project to start over. Knowing this, Sherrill offered to come back to work at double her original salary. Chaplin reluctantly agreed, and the film was completed. What?
Wow. Either Chaplin's a jerk or Virginia Sherrill is not as innocent as we thought.
Granted, this is from an interview so this says sources Virginia Sherrill interview unknown Chaplin 1983. But if that's true, dude, that gives me an even higher acting score.
For both of them, right?
Right?
Yeah.
That's crazy.
What scenes, if you had to speculate, what scenes do you think were shot post-conflict?
I have no clue. I wouldn't even be able to point one out.
Yeah.
I don't know.
I mean, there's no way to know.
There's
I guess
no way
the
to
scene
know.
with the doctor.
The scene with the doctor, because it doesn't involve him.
Doesn't involve him.
Okay.
Or the scenes with her and her grandma. But like her acting seems consistent in the whole movie. She plays a blind person really well. I mean, at least she doesn't go like over the top, and it seems natural.
No, look, that's definitely something in movies that we see quite often, where if someone's playing deaf or someone's playing blind, that they exaggerate the effect of it, I guess.
Mm-hmm.
And she doesn't. So I think that's a fair observation.
So in the very first encounter with Chaplin, the blind girl, it's revealed that she's blind. Do you think they should have gone with the first scene, the interaction goes normal, he doesn't discover her blindness, and then by the second or third scene when he's already infatuated with her, that they reveal that she's blind? That just by pure coincidence, the interaction goes so smoothly that he doesn't notice?
No, I like the way they did it.
Yeah, I like the way they did it too.
Okay.
They shot that scene 342 times.
What, the initial
No
encounter?
way.
Yeah, because they couldn't find a satisfactory way of showing that the blind flower girl thought that the mute tramp was wealthy.
So the car door is what does it for them,
I think something
guess?
just happened between Charlie Chaplin and this girl, and he just didn't like her. It was fine. The scene was great. I don't understand. Why you gotta shoot it 342 times? That's a lot of roll.
If they couldn't figure out how to make him seem rich, I think they probably decided, oh, let's just do the car thing. Because the car thing is who has cars back then, dude? Rich people.
Right.
Mm-hmm.
I thought it was completely. Did you guys feel like they couldn't tell that she thought he was wealthy?
I mean, she doesn't even make a comment on that. It's only her grandma, after he drops her home on the second encounter, that there's any mention that she thinks he's wealthy.
Yeah, no, but there's two things in that first scene, right? It's one, he doesn't take his change. Only a wealthy person wouldn't take their change.
That's true.
And two, he has a car. Like, those are the two big clues.
Oh, I see. All right.
But like, wait, why does the grandma realize that he's
because
rich?
She said he must be rich
off.
because he drove her home.
Right.
Oh yeah, he drove her home. It's a car thing, dude.
Yeah.
This is 1931.
Yeah. It's like somebody having a helicopter today.
Oh, you're telling me you guys don't have helicopters?
Not yet. Dude, not yet.
All right, work on it.
I'm working towards it, though. I'm working towards it. This was Charlie Chaplin's favorite of all of his movies, which is weird because he didn't like the girl. How is this? This is boggling my mind right now. Orson Welles said it was his favorite movie of all time. Winston Churchill visited the set, and Charles Chaplin took a break to make a short film with him. This was his first film made during the sound era.
Okay.
Oh yeah, I read that. They already had talkies by this time, but he wanted it to be silent.
He faced Extreme Film to make it a talking film, but he was so popular that they were able to do it still as a silent movie.
So maybe we should rejudge that part about the writing, right? Because he had the option of inserting more dialogue. It was his choice to keep it silent.
I don't know. I mean, I think it's still a silent movie, right? So it's still...
We got to judge it for what it is.
Yeah, if somebody came out with a silent movie today, I would still judge it the same way.
All right.
Yeah, there's so many little things in this movie that are they're just hilarious, man. And some of it is it's just genius. Like when he did in that scene where he's walking back into that elevator thing. What would you call that? The floor that goes up and down.
It's an example of something where the audience knows what's going on in the scene, but
right.
Yeah, the character doesn't.
But the way they he just so perfectly. I mean, the audience is on edge. You gotta imagine 1931. They were definitely on edge watching him. They're like, oh no, he's gonna fall. Oh no, he doesn't fall. And then he steps back just as the thing is coming up. And then there's so many moments in this movie in particular where the physical comedy is just so good. Like, it is just so good, and that's why I pulled all of that stuff into my acting score. Like when they're when they're at that party, there's just so many moments where I personally was like laughing out loud. One of the moments is like when
Can you clarify? Is this the dinner scene or is this at the rich guy's house?
Sorry, the dinner scene when they're at that restaurant.
Okay, when there's all this dancing and stuff like that, right?
Right,
okay.
right. So like, I don't know if it was a thing back in the day, but if you're gonna like start something with somebody, or if you're trying to threaten somebody, you like take your jacket off halfway and you like put your chest in the air. You know what I mean?
Okay.
Do you guys remember that part?
Yeah.
And
then Eccentric Millionaire, he does it to the one guy. He does it first to the like the waiter, and then the other dude whose chair he takes, and he comes at him. Then he takes his jacket off and he goes up to him. And then he's like, talking to him. And then Charlie Chaplin comes, and then they like hug or whatever. And then he takes Charlie Chaplin back to his seat, but he takes Charlie Chaplin's seat, so Charlie Chaplin falls down. And then Charlie Chaplin gets up, and then he does a chest thing to the Eccentric Millionaire, to the guy who was like on his side. And he's slipping at the same time because the floor is slippery, because he's never been on such a shiny floor. It's just a culmination of so many things. I literally just laughed out loud at that in that moment. I just did one of these like, ha! Like one of those. And I probably... sounded like an idiot doing it, but there's a lot of that stuff.
That in terms of general like enjoyment of a scene, that probably was my most favorite scene.
Yeah,
and it wasn't long either, and it wasn't dragged out. Even though it seems repetitive, like you said, it's a bunch of gags one after another, but it just feels original and it's enjoyable. So
right, yeah, and he's so good. He's so natural at the physical comedy that, like, when the first scene. When he's like
getting off the statue,
he's trying to get off the statue, and the national anthem comes on or whatever, and he's like trying to stay up straight while also falling, and then he comes up straight again.
Yeah, taking his hat off his head.
Yeah,
there's a lot of small stuff like that. This is great.
Yeah. He weaves those moments into the plot, in and out of the plot, or I guess I won't say the plot, the scene. He weaves those moments in and out of the scene so seamlessly, so well. Like in Great Dictator, my one of my favorite things is what he's playing basically the character he's mocking Hitler, and he's running across that hallway, and then he trips, and then everybody realizes that he's there, and they all do the salute thing at the fact that he just tripped. Do you remember that part?
Yeah.
Yeah, and so it's so seamless. His physical comedy is awesome. I can't think of anybody who does it the way that he does. You know what I mean? Like the only thing that we, I think, have to relate to it personally would be like the Three Stooges, but this is on a different level. This is like physical comedy, but there's so much more. I feel like it's so much more authentic.
More soul to it.
Yeah, there's more soul because that is straight up slapstick comedy. The Three Stooges stuff. That's like this guy's getting hit with the pie, and this guy falls, and this stuff. Whereas there's like actual purpose to the physical comedy that Chaplin uses. It's not just relying on cheap. It's not relying on cheap comedy, I guess I should say. Yeah, cheap laughter. Like what he's doing is artful, you know.
And like you said, it's also somewhat original considering it came out in 1931.
Right.
Like this entire genre of like movies is attributed to Charlie Chaplin. Like that's who we know. Like 100 years later.
Fahad, I wanted to ask you, man. I was thinking about this while I was watching the movie. What are your thoughts overall now that we've watched it?
I think it'd be more receptive to other movies from this era. I mentioned that I haven't seen much of his other stuff, so I'd probably watch, what was it, The Great Dictator next?
Yeah, you watch, see now, okay, so that'll be interesting for you to watch because there's nearly a decade between this movie and that one.
So that was released in
41?
40, okay.
I would say, yeah, listen to the Twice Over podcast, The Great Dictator episode.
Oh, I will.
I would say, yeah, watch that movie and then listen to our podcast because we go into the history a lot. And dude, the balls on this guy to come out with a movie about that topic at that time.
When most of America was still divided, right? About whether or not they wanted to support the Nazis.
Exactly. We were not in the war yet.
Pearl Harbor, so yeah, we're neutral technically.
No, we're just gaming both sides, making money.
Yeah, we're gaming both sides because we're helping Germany a lot in this time period.
Right.
Yeah, I think we're good.
All right, we should leave it at that. Thanks for listening, everyone.
Thank you.
See you next time.
Peace.
Thanks for listening to this production of The Twice Over. If you enjoyed this episode, consider subscribing and sharing it with a friend. Want to see what your tally is? Check out thetwiceover.com. All the movies we've done are listed there, as well as what we're watching for the current week. Follow us at The Twice Over on Twitter, Instagram, and Facebook, where you can leave us any suggestions, feedback, or comments. And if you're about it, you can also support us on Patreon. The music you hear on this podcast is from Amerigo Gazaway. You can find his work on Bandcamp and Spotify.